Hi, everyone. Melissa here again to chat with you. Today, we're going to be talking about something that is maybe a little heavier than sometimes that we've chatted. So we're going to really dig into how does our mental state affect our recovery journey? What's happening up here? How does this affect our body's recovery journey? And this is maybe a little bit deeper subject than sometimes we go into, but I want us to really look at this in, quite frankly, love for ourselves and with grace, because often we have walked through some really big things in life, right? And some of those things have contributed to where we are now and who we are now, right? But one of the things we're going to highlight today is how much choice we have and how much power, if you want to say, to be able to shift and change direction and be able to really not just nourish our bodies and really work on our bodies becoming well, but work on all of us. We are a complete package. We're a complete, beautiful creation. And when one piece or one part of us begins to become well, everything else just rolls in with that process. So literally, if we're working on becoming well, and if our goal is wellness, we need to look at all the parts and pieces of us and not just zero in on one or two things. So welcome. That's huge. I know.
It is.
I'm excited.
Well, you know what? I mean, I think the thing is, Melissa, we both were in agreement, but we're going to share a little bit more about our journey with this to you guys, because I think that helps. But, when you really think about it, your wellness is, your body, mind, your skin, so your internal, your external. And, when we're looking at our mind, it's going to include the people we're letting in, people that are around us. As you were speaking, I was thinking of one of my dear friends. Her and her husband have both beat addiction. They helped others beat it for a while too. But, her husband's in that tiny percentile that got off heroin. And he runs businesses. He's such an amazing husband, dad. It's like incredible to watch. But when you ask him about that, like, how hard has that been? His clarity is that I had to do the inside work. And I had to heal what was really broken. And he had some really tough family dynamics. And, and it's like, sometimes we're trying to fix us, which is part of the problem. But sometimes within that journey, we have to go, are the people that are around me serving me? Or I like to call them emotional vampires, because they strap our energy, they take from us. And it's just like when we were talking about parasites last week, right? It's like, they are robbing our nutrients, our joy, all these things. And so when you're really committed to healing, it does involve some firm boundaries and some real awareness around who am I letting in. And you guys, like, this can be hard because it may be parents, it might be children, it might be, people that others are going to tell you it's not appropriate to cut out of your life. But I will tell you that, as we've been digging into my personal journey, and I know I've helped a lot of people, and it's funny because I'm helping people, clients through their stuff and the awareness of what's going on for them, but not always realizing, oh, wait, and it was easier for me to look at maybe friends or, acquaintances that maybe weren't so good. But yeah, when we start to dig into some of those family pieces, maybe people that aren't great for our mental health, that can feel, mean to, kind of put our foot down. But it's essential because, we know so much. And I know if you guys go back to like our first conversation about gut health and how, leaky gut is so linked to emotional trauma, certainly also physical trauma. So if you're really going to do that healing work, you got to look at all of it. And I know that for me, I was like, whoa, because I had not pieced that together. Tension and stress over time, like wears us down. And so then when we go, and our bodies are telling us, right? Like, I know for me, it was like just this, like this inflammation, this like holy cow, like we can't keep going. We can't
Exactly.
heal while all this is getting dumped on us. And when I finally was like, holy smokes, I got to like stop the bleed here, it really meant putting down some hard stops with people that were just not contributing to my healing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know,
Yeah.
the rest of the story is not written. Who knows what happens next? But I know for right now,
Mm-hmm.
it's like I have to put a real firm boundary around myself. But the cool thing is, and I'll share this because I want to give people some hope around it too. A good friend of mine, we actually were roommates at one point, lovely human. He got really wrapped up in alcohol and reached out recently, and he's been sober since May.
Awesome.
I know. And so I had stopped spending time with him, you guys, because it had gotten really toxic. And he just, I mean, you know, he disclosed to me he was getting up drinking at like 5 a.m. and just drinking all day and functioning, like holding a job, doing all these things. And so, you know, what was cool was we actually hung out the other day, we cooked together, which is that stuff we used to do before this had gotten so out of hand for him. And that was such a powerful, for me, example of healing, and that people can, and then you can let them back in. So, you know, please know as we're going through this today, there may be people you can't let back in. There may be some people that recognize that they need to heal, and they do that, and then you can, you know, let them back into your circle. But I think the biggest piece is having your eyes open, right? And then being able to, you know, kind of assess what needs to happen next. And doing this so, and I'm going to highlight this, I'm sure Melissa will too, like with the help of other people, you guys. This is why you need professionals and mentors around you, because sometimes we don't see it, right? And then that person might go, hey, you know what? So, you know, I know for me, like I've shared, you know, before, you know, the family piece and the toxicity and my environment growing up, you know, we've really dug into like, yeah, this has a lot to do with my ongoing stomach issues, you know, which are finally healing now. But, you know, that has meant me really not being around my family right now, you guys. And that may sound, you know, terrible, but if you keep exposing yourself to the trigger, I actually was reading the other day, one of the holistic people I follow, they were talking about if you keep eating the trigger food, that makes sense to us, right? Like if I were to just keep eating gluten, I'd feel like crap constantly and my gut wouldn't heal. But we don't always think about it with the emotional piece. So it's really being aware of, I'm not going to keep, you know, eating that trigger food, so to speak, and keep exposing myself to this stressor, right? And what we're seeing, I know for me, is like with this healing. And I know you have similar experience, Melissa, in terms of your healing.
Yeah. So one of the things that I see repeatedly, clinically, but also first in my own life, was understanding the connection between my multiple sclerosis and the fact that I lived in fear. Like my world was controlled by fear, being afraid to speak up, being afraid to ask for help, being afraid to say, no, I don't like that, stop. Or, you know, being in a place that I didn't, to be visible, I would have to be visible to ask for help, and to not be visible was safe, to not be heard was safe. So just dying inside while my body was following suit. And it didn't, you know, it took me a long time to, you're a quick learner, hun. I'm not, I'm like so slow. But it took me a long time to make the connections, right? To be able to understand that, yes, as my body began to heal, and as I began to work with a practitioner that was so amazing, and that I could just, that I trusted a lot, and, you know, allowing some of those layers to peel off and my body starting to get better. But then when my body started to get better, then I was in a stronger place to then starting to be able to say, you know, I'm important. My needs are important. What I need is important. And then to be able to take it further and create a space in which I could be safe and heal. And sometimes I look at my life right now. I mean, my body's completely well. I am in a beautiful relationship. I get to do work every day that just fills my heart. And I'm like, how did I get here? But that's it, right? It's the little decisions of, this is what I need, and it's okay for me to ask for that. A lot of my former years, like my growing up years, we think of abuse and neglect and all of that happening a lot for kids, right? I was one of those. It was not a fun growing up, but I was able to live through that, obviously. And then my body started to break down when I was in my early 20s, like really break down bad. But being able to know, even into my older years, what does it look like? What does abuse look like? What does trauma look like? What does neglect look like? What does it look like to not be safe? And how does that affect what my body is doing or not able to do? What kind of healing is able to happen or not able to happen because of what's around me and the people who are in my life and the boundaries that I've put down, and how I'm able to speak and be able to say, hey, it's okay for me to be front and center right now because I'm going to get well. And if you're not on board with me, I love you, but I need space.
You highlighted something, Melissa, that I've discussed with so many clients, and I always use the analogy with, so we think of PTSD when like people come back from war, right? But when they're in war, they're not safe to process what's happening. Then they come home and it surges. And what you just said, like in your 20s, you know, you probably were in a place where you were maybe finally physically safe, and your body started to process. And I know for myself, it's like, yeah, I got into a very healthy relationship, and you know, life is going good, and all of a sudden it's like, whoop, and so I think it's important for people to realize that, because it is a process, and you may be doing a lot of things right and doing healing, and then all of a sudden this stuff, because I know even I got frustrated, like, why is this happening now? Everything has been good, but it was like my being was kind of like, oh, good, we can actually like look at this. I think that's huge for people to understand.
It's the same idea as, you know, people that are go, 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 and they're, you know, launching a product and they're working way too many hours and they're go, 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 and not eating right and not sleeping right. And then at the end, they take 2 weeks off and they are sick the entire 2 weeks. They're like, what? Because your body has pushed and pushed and pushed and held up. They're trying to support you and continue. And then when you finally get a break, then your body can process.
It used to happen to me all the time, actually, that exact same pattern. Like anytime I got a day off, I'd get sick. So it's, I mean, I think the thing is too, you know, is for people to understand, you know, really looking at who is around you and supporting your journey, right? And if people are not, I mean, this is the thing, and this is really why you need physical health providers and you need mental health providers, because it can be tricky, right? Like it can be tricky to navigate. How do I set this boundary? How do I perhaps, you know, exit this relationship? I don't know, you know, and I think the fine line is, you know, if you're not feeling physically safe, and that could be, you know, that could be because there's a visceral response to an emotional abuse that's happening, or it could be actually physical, right? It's like you have to let people know, first of all, and own that this isn't feeling okay. But also, if your goal is that you're trying to put yourself in a better place physically, you can only get so far if you're not looking at like that elephant in the room, right?
That is so huge. I cannot tell you how huge that is. So I'll kind of contrast two different client stories that are kind of on opposite ends, right? So a client that is, quite ill and has to depend on their partner for almost all of their care, right? And their body is improving and improving and improving, but because of the safety factor, she keeps hitting a wall. Like, you can do all the right things in supporting your body, but if you're not safe, I mean, and I could go into the hormone factor and all of what's happening in the body, like the actual chemical hormonal stuff that's happening in the body that creates the inability of the body to actually fully heal, for tissue to recover. Because if your body is constantly fighting for you and trying to protect you and shutting down and doing all the things that our bodies do as a reactive, when that is still at play, even though there may be some spaces where they're getting better at some point, it's not going to be complete recovery, which she is really, really working hard for. She wants that really hard. But, the truth of the matter is that going to work? So contrast that with another client who is, she and her partner are upfront a team. They're both on the calls. They're both, how can we do this? How can we, and I have no doubt she is going to be so over the top successful because she has someone who is in her corner. She's in her own corner, first and foremost, but she has a partner that is just like, heck yeah, let's do this. And, she's getting amazing results, but it's because she's in a really safe place and her body's like, yep, we got this. So being able to kind of contrast the two and the results that they're seeing in like a kind of a clinical way, but really highlighting the safety factor and being able to have people around you who are supporting you. So, not just a health professional, but a mental health professional. And if you can have other people in your corner, family members, neighbors, partners, the people in your life that know you the most, that are really just really lifting you up. And if that is not happening, then being able to be honest with yourself and giving yourself space to say, oh, are they contributing to my wellness journey or are they not? And being really real about that. And then taking that kind of realization and then going, okay, what do I want to do about that? Does that make sense?
Totally. The thing that you said that I like came out like this to me was she's in her own corner. And that's the thing, when we choose who we're going to let around us and who's going to be speaking either life or death over us. That's the thing, is we're choosing ourselves, and some people might say, oh, well, that's selfish. No, it's essential, especially if you're really trying to heal big things, right? Like, people aren't coming to you for hangnails, right? Like they're coming to for chronic health issues. And quite frankly, you guys, some of this work is breaking generational curses.
Oh,
like that.
Totally.
Right. So
total chills.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Like,
I cannot tell you how big that is.
A pattern that's been going on for longer than we've been walking. So in order to really let that happen and come to fruition, you have to sit there and not just look at, foods we're eating and, water intake and all the logistics. It's also who is allowed to have access to my ear.
And my heart.
They did that study, Melissa. I don't know if you saw it, but it's circulated around places. I couldn't even really tell you where, but they took plants. So they had two sets of plants, same plants. The whole care system was identical, but one set they spoke really kindly over, and the other one they did not. They spoke like mean, nasty things. So the plants that were being loved on thrived and they're like, growing and yay.
Yeah.
The other plants were like all wilted and rotted. And, the scientists were like fascinated by that because, that's not the world they dwell in, right? But we can't deny energy. And
Yep.
that's the thing. You know, if you're around someone who maybe is saying they want what's best for you, but doesn't actually act in alignment, energetically, that doesn't vibe with your healing. And, you know, not everyone's going to be upfront about the fact that, you know, they don't want you to get better because they need you to be codependent, or, you know, they're not really cheering you on because seeing you hit a level of success that they're not going to ever hit triggers them, whatever, you know, but that's their stuff. And I think this is the part where it gets really hard, because we have to look at people, because everyone has battles, but it's how they're choosing to approach them. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really big. It's big. And I think part of it is, and I'm speaking about this from my own experience, is that when you're in it, sometimes it takes someone in love going, hey, what about this, honey? You know, and being gentle. And, you know, people talk to me. There was some, you know, very specific situations happening. And then, you know, quite frankly, my life blew up and my body did too. And, you know, it wasn't until those, like, so I'm a hard-headed German. I'll just tell you that. It takes a lot for me to be like, oh, okay, right. And there were people in my life at that point that just kind of literally carried me, because there wasn't anything left of me. And it was in those times, though, that I was like, okay, this can't continue, or I'm not going to continue. And being able to make very real choices. And even in that point, I didn't know what those choices were going to end up looking like. I didn't know, you know, am I going to have a place to live? Am I going to be okay? You know, but really understanding that, boy, howdy, when I had to make decisions, I made them, and where the chips fall where they may. And, you know, I pray that never happens to any of you guys that are listening. But I want you to really know that there are people that will come up and just support you. There are resources that you never even thought were there. You just have to ask. And I didn't know that. I didn't know I could, because of the whole, you know, I didn't know I could ask for help. I didn't know I could speak. I felt so cut off from the world and unseen. But guys, that's no way to live, and that's no way to be better. So to be able to break out of that and realize that as soon as I made that decision, it's like, oh, you know, here's this person coming in, and here's this person coming in. And then, you know, so many things were provided for me that I had no idea what could even happen. And that was part of my healing journey, was learning to speak and ask for help.
We all have those lessons that we need to learn. And so I think it's not having judgment with yourself. I know that there's been times where I'm like, the heck, because I'm like a battle axe, right? It's like I could just get through anything. But as you know, the adjustment for me has been learning how to work smarter, not harder, and asking for help, and also just really acknowledging when my body can't just anymore, right? And and that's a very uncomfortable space for me, just like, you know, speaking was an uncomfortable space for you. And for sure, you know, learning to have a voice, and we develop skills in these challenges too. So I think for everyone who's listening, it's not judging your journey, which can be really hard, right? But it is in fact your journey, and it may not look like someone else's. But I think the piece is if you are really looking for that full wellness,
exactly,
then you have to step back and go, okay, what are the lids here that might be stopping me? And are there people I need to enlist to help me? You know, and the cool thing is, just like you said, there are resources. Any hurdle that you present, someone will have a solution for, you know, and it is not going to necessarily be easy. But I think the piece to understand is, of course, it's worth it if it's about getting on the other side.
Exactly.
like, how do I really live my fullest, best life?
Exactly.
And we can't do that if we're, constantly having people speaking death over us. We can't be vibrant, right?
Exactly. Exactly. That is so huge. And I think the thing that is hard to see, like when you're in that space, is to see that you actually have choices. You have the power to change that. I think that's the hardest thing. It wasn't until like literally my life blew up and there was no hiding anymore. I had
Because you
to
may, in
speak.
fact, have people around you telling you that you can't,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you have someone telling you, like, you can't survive without me, you can't do this, you can't do that, you're so ungrateful, you treat me poorly, right? Even if those things are not true, it leads us to a space of like, well, that must be true because that's what they're saying.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think just knowing, I mean, this is something that we all have to realize for ourselves, right? It took, something like literally for me to realize that. And maybe I hope to goodness that not everybody is as hard-headed as I am, but sometimes it takes that. That's an absolute gift. I mean, it didn't feel like it at the time, but it was an absolute gift for me to find my voice. And so now that is one of the things I love to do. I love doing these videos. I love doing teaching. I love doing speaking because I have a voice. And part of what I can speak over people and into their worlds is hope. And that would have never been a part of my world if all of this hadn't kind of come down like it did.
Oh, it's at Milet. I don't know if anyone listens to him, if they're watching. I love him. He's a wonderful speaker. I listen to him all the time. I listen to his podcasts. I've read a bunch of his books, but he spoke at the conference I was at a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about like where you feel most broken, what you feel like disqualifies you is actually what qualifies you to help someone else.
I love that.
Yeah. And I think that's so important, and you guys, if you're watching this and you're like, I don't know, maybe it's, your spouse, maybe they're not in your corner, maybe they're not kind, you need to get some support. You need a mental health professional in your corner. You need to, make sure you get the tools in place to help you, because there are resources out there, and certainly, especially if you're feeling in danger, because again, you can't really move forward in your journey. And I know, especially working with folks who have addiction, this is such an important piece for them to look at, right? Who's around me, and people get rid of phones and change phone numbers and whatever. And it's an extreme, but it shows you exactly that. Like, I have to change my environment.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a big deal. It's a big
It is
deal.
a big deal.
Yeah. And I feel
Because
like it's such a kind of a dark topic today, but I think the biggest thing that we both want you to get out of this is understanding the absolute choices that you have and understand the importance of making those choices. Because if you're going to really be well, this is part of the journey. And also reinforcing the hope at the end of that. Oh my goodness, look at what kind of a life you could have and that you deserve. And then how can you reach for that? How can you reach for that? Not just in hopes and dreams, but really making the daily decisions that it takes to reach that.
Yeah, I think this is huge, you guys, and knowing that you cannot really heal if you keep pouring the same poison back in, right? So, and yes,
huge.
Part of that's food and other things, but part of that is certainly people around you and what you're allowing into your mind.
Yeah. Honest. Wow.
Yeah. But we're both examples of that you can, and And, you know, we learn a lot when you're in those valleys, right? You never learn anything when you're on the mountaintops. Like the mountaintops are fun. But that's not where we learn.
Oh, exactly. Exactly.
You know, and if people need support, you know, you guys can reach out to us. We're happy to
Yep.
give you resources and help you figure out. But, you know, certainly an important thing to think about for sure.
Yeah. And maybe even help you think about how, you know, if you're not feeling safe right now, how to think through that and how to make good decisions for yourself and how to create a space, or even start working towards creating a space where you feel safe. Like, what does that look like? And what are the steps going to look like? And being able to just help you gently work through that and think through that so that you have real tangible things that I can do this, right? Because a lot of times we think about, I want to be, you know, I want to be this, or I want to be safe, or I want to be whatever. And it looks so far away, like there's no possible way that you can even get there, or it could even be possible for you. But if you have somebody who can just sit down with you and kind of gently ask questions and help you think through it, sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, I can do this, right? And so both Melissa and I would be happy to do that with you. This is a journey of complete wellness on the inside and the outside. All of us.
Oh, yeah. No, I think, and I think it's also for you guys to know, like, you will feel better. It feels really hard at first, but then when you start to do it, you actually start to feel so much better.
Oh, changes your world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
it's such a key piece. So we are here to support you guys in that transition. And we both know it doesn't feel easy at first, but it is necessary. So
yeah. And the other side is awesome.
Yes. Yeah. Once you get on the other side, much better.
Yeah. Awesome.
We're sending love to everybody who's watching this.
Oh, so much.
Hopefully it feels like you have someone to help you kind of target what the trigger is. You know, that's important too.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. I know this is so much in your space as a mental health professional, and you get this so much. So thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Awesome. Thank you, Melissa, for sharing the physical piece of it, and that's your wheelhouse, and sharing your story too. You know, because I think people need to know we live, we practice what we preach, and that's important.
All right, you guys. Well, feel free to reach out to us if you like. Please share these videos. We're putting together. We've got a nice little video library built up. We're going to continue to do these talks. And if there's something that you want us to talk about, if there's a subject that really is near to your heart, if you have a big question or little question, anything that you want us to cover, we'd be happy to do that in our talks. The information for how to contact either one of us is going to be in the description under the video. And we wish you the most blessed day ever.
Thank you, guys. And thanks, Melissa.
Oh, you're so welcome. Enjoy your day.
You too, Levy.
Bye.